Hi everyone, this is Dr. Robin and welcome to another episode of Yap with Dr. Yap. I am here with James Moffatt. Thank you so much for having us and introduce yourself, please. A little bit more info.
Yeah, name's James Moffatt. I've been doing consulting on project management for over 30 years. Fell into project management. Started off before it really became a discipline. With the advent of trying to put in POS systems and things like that were computerized, it was what was the planning required, what had to be done to actually achieve the end goal. So that's how I started off. I actually started contracting before I finished university.
Amazing. All right, so let's dive into it with regard to being a contractor. Now, you're not always part of a formal chain of command. Now, how do you build credibility and influence when there's that lack of positional authority?
Well, it's usually layered. You're usually brought in as a senior consultant like myself, usually brought in by a senior individual and tasked to work on an actual project or a suite of projects. As such, you have the credibility of being brought in by them, a more senior individual. And then it's also building your credibility with the team. It takes time learning what you need to learn that's unique about that company, that organization, what they need, where their gaps are, where their strengths are, how you boost up their strengths and make their gaps less obvious to them and where it can be filled in. And more importantly, it's usually a people management issue. How do you get the people to do what you need to do? How do you train the people? How do you get the people to trust you? And how do you work with them? So like with any role, it's getting to know the people. It's having tea and coffee with them. It's going for a walk with them. It's meeting with them one-on-one and trying to get to know them personally, and building the credibility with them and seeing what you can do to help them succeed.
Right. Now, with banks or other large organizations, things like priorities shift so constantly and frequently. How do you then adapt when the scope changes, leadership change, or when decisions are made, especially when you're not there in the room?
Well, as a consultant, you're quite often not in the room when a decision is made. But it's about flexibility. It's understanding that they are the client, they have a need, and you need to pivot immediately. You need to think of things differently. You need to think of what can be done to make it more successful. Do you have any advice for them, being that you have experiences outside of their actual world? What can you do to make it better and stronger? Where can you add value? And yes, there are situations where things will change extremely often, usually for the good, but now and then not. And can you gently advise them on those decisions and what can be done? And understanding when decisions are made and you have to go with it and make sure that you can do it as good as possible.
Now, how do you actually stay visible, especially when you're not in that room and you're trying to make sure that you do impact or provide some influence? So how do you stay visible, communicate progress, probably even avoid being forgotten, right?
Again, it's building the personal relationships. As a senior individual, it's giving regular reporting to the right audience, getting in front of the right audience at a regular period of time, setting up monthly or quarterly or where need be even weekly meetings with senior individuals to say, hey, this is what's going on. This is what I think the direction should be. And or this is the progress you've asked for, and this is how we are achieving your goals and how we are meeting their needs so that they can report to their senior management on where things are going. So again, it's keeping yourself out there, but understanding your role, because as a consultant, now and then the strongest thing you can do is not be as visible to certain audiences.
Right.
So you want to be visible to the people who brought you in, but you might not want to be visible to the end client,
Right.
because they are wanting to do it themselves. You're there to augment. You're there to help them. You're there to carefully guide them so that they will be the superstars at the end of the day. And then the senior management knows that you helped to get there.
Right. Hi everyone, the sponsor for today's episode is Point North Foundation. You can find information at pointnorthfoundation.org for an upcoming undergraduate case competition for any college student or university student in a recognized institution by the Government of Canada. And you want to make sure that you are in a business school and the teams are teams of two. You compete in this case competition. It's a day-long case competition. All the instructions will be at pointnorthfoundation.org. So with the world becoming a little bit more difficult with individuals trying to look for jobs and projects, not progress. What are these personal habits or professional kind of practices that you do so that you continue to become effective and in demand through all these years that you've been in the business?
Networking really is one of the biggest things you can do. Find your peers, get together with them on a regular basis, communicate with them, asking them for advice on when you hit difficult situations, being available to help them when they're having difficult situations, and just really just keeping yourself present and available to help other people.
Right.
Knowing that not every role is the perfect fit. And being strong enough to just help them where need be. The other funny thing is knowing when to fire your client.
Oh, I like that. Tell me more.
Because it's not always a perfect fit every time. Now and then you will get, not very often, but you'll get a client going down a direction that is not necessarily you think the right direction. Or might be pushing you in a direction you think isn't ethically correct. And you can only push so far to say, hey, you don't believe they're going the right direction, or whatever. Or they might be, the role might have morphed into something that's really not your forte.
Right.
It's not your strength.
Right.
And they're not able to use your skill sets anymore that you want them to use. And therefore you have to know when to walk away with the right notice, the right guidance, the right respect, and to ensure that all their needs are met.
Right. Well, some of our audiences are new into the industry and therefore are looking for tips and tricks. And what is the one nugget that you'd like to share with them and say, you don't want to forget this? Whatever that job would be, because I think it's much more universal, right?
Regardless of the job, you have to learn how to listen, evaluate, and give positive feedback, even when you don't necessarily believe they're going in the right direction, so that you have the credibility to mold it into more the right direction down the road. So listening, and adding advice where need be or where possible is very important, and keeping the connections open, because with any big corporation or any big project, they can stop at any point in time. A lot of people believe that you get a $50-100 million project and it will just keep going. Well, no, now and then they'll spend $150 million and all of a sudden just stop it and shut it down. Because they believe that they have missed the mark. So keeping yourself visible, keeping your contacts, keeping the friendly relations with the different individuals, including basically keeping the relationships with all different levels of the food chain is very important.
All right, and I think that's it for us today. So thank you so much
Thank you.
for taking the time to do this, and we'll see you soon. Thanks,
you.
everyone. Bye. But wait, there's more. So one of the questions that may come up when it comes to being a contractor is: are there any rules or any regulations that may be needed to recognize being a contractor, being in an environment where, there are some, especially with banks, with very specific rules to do what they need to do?
Yes, there are. Each environment or each jurisdiction is unique. In Canada, for instance, you have to be careful you don't fall into what they call an employer-employee relationship,
Okay.
in which the government might determine that you're no longer a consultant, you're really a full-time employee, and therefore those taxes and those ramifications hit.
Right.
Versus as a consultant, you're paid an amount, and then you have business expenses you can then take out.
Right.
So really understanding what those limits are. For the Canadian audience, most of it is geared towards keeping your own records, keeping detailed information of what you're doing that's unique, that's different, not participating in all the employee functions that happen that are extracurricular.
Right.
And also to make sure that your tenure at the company doing a specific role is limited, so that you're really acting as either advice giving or staff augmentation for a very small set period of time, usually under 2 years. So after the 2-year mark,
You become an employee,
you
really?
could be determined more of an employee. There's usually some set questions the government would be looking for,
Right.
which is, do they guide your work effort? If they're guiding 100% of your work effort,
Then
you
you're
could be employed. If they're providing you all your materials, then they could be it. If they're setting all your timelines and all your work, then you could be an employee. So after the 2-year mark, if you're falling into those key 4 or 5 questions of, what makes up an employee,
Right.
then they might determine you an employee, and therefore there could be tax implications and penalties that come upon that. So you have to make sure that your tenure is in a certain role
Right.
is down to a shortened period, like a 2-year period, and then you need to leave that role.
Right.
And you may return, but after a few months of a break to show that, hey, you're doing other work.
Right. Wow. You need to know that. So pay attention. Thank you. You've been listening to Yap with Dr. Yap, the podcast, produced by Point North Media with offices in Madrid, Spain, and Toronto, Canada. Original music by Jojo the Point North AI. Find us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, and hear our other episodes on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Until next time, stay curious and keep those conversations going.